This discussion is going to be about Victorian engagement rings, and it is brought to you by www.qualityvintageengagement.rings.com. Now, one thing to keep in mind with antique and vintage engagement rings is that all of these rings can be dated back to a specific decorative period, ranging anywhere from the 1700s up until the 1940s. And there were 6 specific periods within that time, and they all have very unique styles and designs that are very different from the other periods. Today we are talking specifically just about the Victorian style, and that Victorian period took place between about 1835 and 1890. Keep in mind that these dates are kind of just general. They're, it's debatable as to when specific time periods started and when they ended, because really some of the periods overlapped and it's hard to pinpoint exactly when a specific style started. But for the most part, the Victorian period was during, the majority of the 1800s. Now, the Victorian engagement rings were influenced strongly by Queen Victoria. She was the reigning monarch at the time, and she was a true romantic. She loved the feminine designs and the beautiful pieces of jewelry, and so a lot of the jewelry that was made during that time period was influenced by her style and her taste in style. She really liked to wear rings. She wore a lot of rings, and so that's why, part of the reason why Victorian engagement rings are so popular. When you're talking about the Victorian style, one of the biggest pieces of jewelry are the rings, because she loved the rings. And these jewelry pieces were designed very beautifully. They had very feminine styles and just full of intricate designs, and they were just very beautiful pieces of art. It wasn't just a jewelry piece, it was a piece of art. Many of the Victorian jewelry pieces are very symbolic. The church had, a very strong influence on the culture at the time, and so there are a lot of religious symbols and other symbols that are family-oriented. Some of the religious symbols included things such as crosses and ivy and doves, and sometimes they would use Greek letters in the designs and the intricate carvings. They also used the symbol of snakes because that was a symbol of eternity. And then, some of the family symbols were things that were in, like the gemstones and the carvings. Sometimes they'd spell out names with the gems that were used in the ring or in the, whatever piece of jewelry that you're talking about. And, many of these pieces really actually told a story. The designer, instead of just creating a beautiful piece, the designer would weave in these symbols that told the story. It told about the designer's, passions or their desires, or it told a story of the family. So there really is a lot more to the Victorian style than just the beautiful designs that we see to the eye. If you look into it a lot more, you can see that there are a lot of stories, and that's what makes the Victorian style and the Victorian engagement rings, that's what makes it so special, is the fact that each of these unique pieces has its own individual story. People love that you can carry those tales down through history. They make great heirlooms that have been passed down through the generations. One other note to keep in mind about the jewelry during the Victorian time period is that jewelry showed a social status. It wasn't just something that anyone could wear. There were specific pieces of jewelry and specific rings that were appropriate for the younger ages and the older ages, and depending on what social class you were in is what determined what was appropriate for you to wear. So there were lots of different aspects of the Victorian style, and really we don't have time to get into all of the details in this video, but if you do want more information about the Victorian period or any of the other decorative styles, check out our website, because we've got a ton of information there, and also other general information about engagement rings and diamond shopping. And it's just a good one-stop shop, a good place to get a lot of resources about jewelry purchases. So again, our website was www.qualityvintageengagement.rings.com.